Okay. Hello! Welcome to our cooking demonstration for Native American Heritage Month. We've got our chef behind me. But yeah, I'm Elizabeth Lester from the Women and Gender Resource Center. And I'd like to begin by thanking our sponsors, or our co-sponsors, which are the Department of American Studies and also the Intercultural Diversity Center. We're going to have a sign-in link for y'all to please sign in. It's very important. It really helps us with figuring out who's here. And so, yes, please, we're going to show a QR code. But I'd also kind of like to talk about the center really quick. We're the Women and Gender Resource Center. Lindsay, could you put up the Women and Gender Resource Center graphic for me? Thank you. So we do programming like this every month. This week we actually have a Native American Heritage Month scavenger hunt going on, so it's a really cool way to get involved and to learn more about indigenous culture, traditions, heritage. So you can find more information about that on our website, on our Instagram, UAWGRC, and so some of the other stuff that we do are resources at the WGRC. We have free and confidential counseling, and that is for people that have suffered interpersonal violence. And like I said, it's free, confidential, voluntary, and it's not just therapy. We can also help people plan for physical and emotional safety. We can help them find safe housing, support groups, help you with your professor, and help explore legal and judicial options if that's what you want to do. So we're going to pop up the QR code for the sign-in. Cool. And so if y'all could take a minute and sign in, that would be amazing. Just scan that with your phone. And so while y'all are doing that, I'll give Grayhawk his intro, and we'll also have at the bottom for the first couple minutes, we'll have the sign-in code streaming, so you can either scan the QR code or sign in at the tiny URL. And so Grayhawk Perkins, who is our chef, as he requested about 20 minutes ago, galloping Grayhawk?
Galloping Grayhawk.
Galloping Grayhawk makes him sound very majestic, which he is our chef. He is from Louisiana, which I'm sure he's going to talk a lot about. And he is a chef, a musician, author, a jack of all trades, truly a unique person. So I will leave you enjoy, and stay tuned at the very end, though. We're going to be dropping the recipe. Just in case, it's hard to cook alongside and you miss something, we'll have the steps available. And we'll also have another little link for you to click at the end. So please enjoy. I'll leave it to Grayhawk.
Hey, I hope everybody's going to enjoy the cooking demonstration tonight. My name is Grayhawk, and I'm from Louisiana. I am Choctaw and Houma. And tonight's dish that we're going to do for you, I know you've got the ingredients and the name and everything. It's called Maque Choux corn. It's actually a corn soup. And around this time of year, when it starts getting cool, we start doing some of our soups. And this is one that we like a lot. Like I said, it starts off when the cool weather starts in. So this is about the time of year. It's not that cool, but right now, but when it gets cool, we start doing this dish. And so I'm going to start working on the Maque Choux, and just follow along with me. And I'm going to try not to go too fast. So if you're cooking right now with me, you can keep up. And but there's not much you can do to really hurt this recipe. Once you learn this recipe, you can add things, you can take things away, but you can also, like I said, add things to it to make it to your own taste. But this is my recipe. It came from my family and my grandmother, and I've taken the recipe and also added things to it that I like. So we are going to talk about a vegetarian version of it, and we'll talk about the meat version, or you can add like a shrimp to it. So I'm going to go over here to the stove, and we're going to get started. Almost you try to prepare everything before you get started, like I'm doing. If you have bowls, get everything ready, because that way you can flow through. And I know if you use cans, it's hard to do all the cans while you're cooking. So do everything. If you can do it like this, have everything prepared, this is the best way to do it. And I always suggest, if you're going to get a chopping board, get one like I have, and it's huge. This chopping board that I have, I've been having probably about 40 years or more, and it's been around. So, and I can take it with me, put it on the table. I can carry the whole thing with me when I take off. So we got your ingredients. We got your corn. This is your whole corn. We also have our onions, which we take our onions and we slice them up and we dice them. And yeah, that's a whole onion right here. And we got a whole bell pepper, and we dice the bell pepper. You can dice it finer than that. I like it with a lot of big chunks and small chunks. It kind of varies. And they got the red bell pepper and you got the yellow bell pepper. I only use half of the red and half of the yellow. Now, if you're making a vegetarian version of it, you might want to use the whole bell pepper. Sometimes I use the whole bell pepper, but the pot, when you make this pot, there's so much. It makes a large pot. Like I said, we got a pot over here on the stove. You can see that's usually the pot that I use, and then there's another pot on this way that I cooked earlier, and I'll show you how that looks a little later. But these are the two pots I cook my Maque Choux in, and they always have a good skillet, And sometimes I'll have a cast iron skillet, but today I'm using a Teflon skillet. And you want a nice large skillet because you have to add all of these ingredients together. So what you're going to do is you're going to take I'm going to move the meat out of the way for a minute, and we're going to take the onions. Well, first what we're going to do is we're going to take, if you have oil, you can use olive oil, you can use sunflower oil, you can use really any kind of oil you want to use. I like olive oil when I cook, and just put a little bit in your pan like that. I cook it, and the way I learned to cook with my grandmother and aunts and uncles and all is that you learn to cook a lot of times without measurements. For some reason it just happens after you cook for a while. A lot of times, my grandmother didn't use measurements. She knew how much was in her hand. She knew by sight what needed to go in the pot, and that's the way I learned how to cook. I can cook with measurements too, but I like cooking like this because we cook for taste, And so what I'm going to do is I'll put the oil in it first, coat it really nice, have that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my onions, and I've got a couple of knives, and this knife here I like because it's a big knife, it's a large knife, and it helps me scoop all my ingredients in. So you're going to take your onions first, and you're going to put your onions in. And you'll take your onions and put it in the pan. And what you'll do is you'll get your stove going. I suggest put it on probably about a medium temperature to start with, to get things started rolling. So you're going to put your onions in there, and then you're going to take your bell pepper. You're going to put bell pepper in next. So you'll take your bell pepper and you'll put your bell pepper in next. Get that onion in there first, and you get the bell pepper. And you can actually take all of it and put it in at one time if you want. It's no big deal. But I usually like to put my onions in first. And the reason I do the colors is I like having a lot of colors in my dishes sometimes. And also, too, the bell pepper, it gives it a really great flavor, but it also looks good when you put it in the pan. And then you let it start sauteing down a little bit. Let that start going. And while that's getting ready to go, you're gonna you can do your sausage. And if you don't have tasso, this is tasso. If you can get your hands on tasso, try to get some. If you can get some kind of smoked meat or smoked pork, try to get that. It works just as well, but you'll have to add a little bit of cayenne or hot seasoning because these things, tasso is a smoked meat. It's a smoked meat that they cover with peppers, and they season the meat, and then they smoke it, and they cook it down, and it has all those peppers and all those flavors in it. And so you'll take that and you'll put that aside and you can store that away and use it in your soups. And you don't have to really put salts and all those things in it because all of that is in this meat when it's cooked. So what you want to do now is you want to take this tasso and you want to cut this tasso into pieces, just like that. Or if you, like I said, if anybody's got bacon or anything that they're using, cut those pieces up. And you can cut them bigger like that. But like I said, tasso is not something that you see a lot of. And to me, it's a delicacy. I mean, you don't see it everywhere. And it is an old dish for us. Native Americans have been using smoked meats like this. We did turkey, we would do bison, we would do venison, and we smoke it down. And you would do it in a smokehouse, or you'd smoke it over a fire, and it would preserve it. And you have all these flavors that you would dry it out, and you could use it later in your soups to add to your soups. And so we're going to do the tasso. And right now, you might want to do this while I'm doing the tasso. Take whatever type of seasons you have. If you have black pepper, you have salt, and you have cayenne pepper, some hot peppers. You want to add into this. Do it right now, because I don't do it after. I try to get it all in the flavors with the vegetables. And you want to when we get started, you want to get those vegetables all mixed together. You want to get it all blended. The flavors all in the onions and mixed with the peppers, and then you're going to get it mixed with the seasonings from the seasoning you put in, but the seasoning that you're going to get from the tasso. And so while I'm doing this, you can add your seasonings to taste. If you want a lot, you can put a lot. You can add it to taste while I'm doing this, and I should be finished this in a few minutes, a few seconds actually. And you can make the tasso as thick as you want, and I'm going to cut these down a little bit more. They don't have to be uniform, because it's a lot of times the tasso. Sometimes it gets so tender it just disappears into the dish that you're cooking. And so here we go. Now, I suggest if I know people, a lot of you people that are doing, you know how to cook, you do culinary and you know how to cook, and you got special knives that you use. And this knife that I'm using is an old hickory from about 1810, and it's one that I like. It's a good all around knife. And there are other knives that I use. I use this one. You got your knives that you use that are special for things that you use, but for meats and things like this, I like using my old hickory, and they stay really sharp, and it takes a lot of care. You have to really take a lot of care with these knives because they will rust. So if you're using them, you make sure that you oil them and you clean them, and you make sure that they're sharp. All right, so this is the way it's going to be with your tasso, and now you can smell. I wish we had smell-o-vision. That way you could smell this. And I know if you're cooking right now, you're starting to get the aroma of the onions, and now onions are starting to really go good on the bottom. So now you're going to start working the peppers in with the onions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that heat up a little bit to maybe a 7 on here, I guess, not quite to 3/4. And we're going to get that going a little bit better. And we're going to add the tasso, like you did your seasoning, to this dish. Now, tasso, like I said, today when you buy tasso, it's pork most of the time. But we used to use a lot of things, like I said, venison, and we used buffalo. Because there was buffalo down here. A lot of people think that there was buffalo in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, but they were. I mean, where I'm at in Louisiana, the buffalo came down as far as what we call the Chapelizod Basin. That's right about where Baton Rouge is in Louisiana. And not as big as the buffalo that you had in out west, but we had them, Just like our deer is not as big because we have deers that, especially where I'm at down in Louisiana, lower Louisiana, our deers are made for marsh, and so a lot of our animals are a lot smaller than some of the ones that roam the prairies. Now, look at that. That looks great. That's coming out. I'm going to go to about 3/4. So if you have marks on your stove, that's an 8, but about 3/4. And you're just going to let that start blending together. And while that's doing that, I'm going to start working on this pot over here. Well, I'm not going to work on this pot yet, but I've got everything ready. And I'm going to cut the sausage up because I'm going to take the sausage and I'm going to keep this here because I want these two to blend up. But I'm going to cut my sausage and I got a knife for everything. So you're going to cut your sausage and I think about a 1/4 inch. And Lindsay, can you hear me? Lindsay is one of the ladies that helped here. She's one of the education people here at Melville. It's starting to really work out nice. You want to make sure that it starts all blending together, all the flavors. And you can see how colorful it really is. And, years ago, and I mean, I've done it when I was young, we would go collect wild onions and you do shallots and wild onions and put that in, and we have our peppers. And in Louisiana, we have this place called Avery Island. They grow cayenne peppers, for like Zatarans and Tabasco. You get those peppers, and so we've always had peppers in Louisiana, and so that's always added to a lot of our food. And there's another ingredient that we usually use, and if you can get your hands on it, try to. It's called filet. And I think I've got a bottle over here. Let me see if I can get this bottle real quick. And filet is made from the sassafras sassafras tree. And it's a real fine powder. If I can open it, you can see it's a real fine powder. And it's from the leaves of the sassafras tree. And usually what I do is I put some filet in with when I start mixing it. Or sometimes, you just leave it until after it's over with, and then you add it because filet is a thickener. It will thicken, but also it gives it a really good flavor. And you can see that it's really working together now. And you want to at least get those onions where they're wilted. You don't want them too intact, and I mean not intact, but hard. You want to wilt these things a little bit, get a little color to them, get that flavor going. That looks real good. It smells real good. In fact, right now you could probably take it in about a couple of minutes and just throw it in your plate and start eating it. So really good. Let me finish up my sausage here. And in Louisiana, we have different types of sausage. Sometimes we use andouille sausage. Sometimes we use smoked sausage. Um, I hope that, like I said, I know we couldn't get the taco for you, and I know that I'm hoping that you got either some good smoked sausage or some good hot sausage. Hot sausage is pretty good when you don't have tacos, because then you get that pepper flavor in your hot sausage. And this is a local sausage. I'm trying to remember the name. Uh, we don't have this in Louisiana.
Kaneka, I think.
What's that?
Kaneka.
Kaneka sausage, and you probably know because you live here. It's the first time I'm using Kaneka sausage. And the sausage we have is a little bit bigger than that, and um, and I know that you have sausage like that, but everybody was telling me to get the Kaneka sausage because they said it was so good. And I did try some earlier because I did make another pot so that you can see what the finished product was like, and it is good. It is really good sausage. And I think we're almost ready to. Oh yeah, it's cooking really good. So while you're doing your sausage like this, it's giving your vegetables a chance. And if you look at the pot right now, the onions are starting to really look nice. Look at that. The flavors are starting to mix. The tasso is getting in there, getting all that flavor, getting that going. That is so pretty and it smells so good. Anytime you cook with onions and peppers, though, it always smells good. And the one thing about this dish is that I mean, as far as cost goes, it's fairly cheap, you know, but also, too, it feeds a lot. You know, like if you have a couple of people in your house, or if it's just you can eat for days on this because as this dish sits there in your refrigerator, the flavors start mixing more, and every day it tastes even better and better, you know. And like I said, it will feed quite a few people. And if you're eating it, all at one time with a lot of people, you can feed quite a few people with it. If you want, like I said, if y'all want to use it for a whole week, uh, and eat on it a whole week, you can. And if you can even do this. If you get to the point where you've eaten Maque Choux for a while, then you can put it in the freezer and freeze it, and then go back later and get it, and it's going to taste just as good. You know? Let's get that sausage in there. Well, actually, before I get the sausage, we're going to get this since it's really mixed together nice. And it's nice and wilted. It's looking really good on them. And then out there's caramel. They're getting caramel color really nice here. And we're going to put this in the pot temporarily right now just to hold it. All right. And we're going to take the pot, put it right here for a minute, and we're going to put our sausage in the pot. So we're going to take our pot and we're going to knock that sausage down in that pot. You know, get that in there. Get over here, you. Put all the sausage in there because you're going to cook the sausage down. Oh, yeah, I don't want to lose that. All right. So we're going to take it, put it back on the fire a little bit, and we're going to take a little bit of the olive oil that we used earlier. And just put a little bit, just coat it just a little bit, not much, so it doesn't really burn. And start working at that same heat that you had it at before. Start working that sausage because you're going to try to get that sausage to at least brown or turn a darker color. You know, a lot of times these sausages, especially the sausage that you get that's smoked sausage and all, a lot of it's cooked. You just have to heat up, and so basically you don't have to heat it up too long. We do have sausage in New Orleans, and I was going to get some that they make locally, and you have to cook it down, and it does a lot better job, but you have to cook that, and it takes a while to cook that down. But if you get the smoked sausage in the pack that's already cooked, where you just have to lightly brown it, that's just as good too, and that's what this is. So we're going to try to get this to where it's brown. Let it go like this, and I do have to check something real quick, and it's perfect. Okay. Grab over here. Now, we were talking about things that you can do with your Maque Choux. You can make fry bread, or you can make cornbread. And so we made some cornbread, and so we're gonna turn this thing off. And so we got some cornbread to go with with our Maque Choux, and. And with the cornbread, you can also add, the corn juice like we were doing here when you're mixing your cornbread with kernels of corn. Or you can actually, with cornbread, you mix it partial with the milk or whatever you're going to use with the butter, and then use cream corn mixed with it, and you'll have that cream corn in your cornbread. It makes it real moist, but then you've got that corn in there, and you got a lot of corn flavor. You can see that it's starting to brown a little bit. Now today, I'm going to share this that while we're getting these sausages nice and brown, and get the ends of them a little crunchy. Um, we're going to do with this feast tonight that we're doing. We're going to drink some sassafras tea, and we made some sassafras tea earlier. And what you do is sassafras tea, you use the root, and you take the root and you boil the root down, and you make a tea out of it, and that tea turns almost a reddish pink color, and it smells so good. It's the original root beer. And one thing about that, we would use that sassafras along with cooking our soup, and it would warm you up because the sassafras was one of those things that it was used when the flu season came and when cold season started, and it was a medicine, but also a tea that you would drink, and it would induce sweating, and it would get all the impurities out of your body through your pores. And so we would drink at this time of year, drink that sassafras, heat you up, and it cleanses you. We didn't do sweat lodges here because especially where I live in Louisiana, someone said, "Do y'all do sweat lodges?" And I said, "Oh, do you sweat?" And I said, "I'm from Louisiana. We sweat daily, So, but we do use a sassafras root to induce sweating and to get all the impurities out of our pores. Now, through our pores. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of this. I'm going to take the whole thing actually, and I'm going to transfer it over. Now we've got the juice from the sausage, and I'm going to transfer this back to this pot, and I'm going to start mixing that sausage juice with the tasso, and oh my God, look at that. Look at the gravy it actually made. Really good. So you're going to start mixing all this together and get all these flavors. Like I said, this dish, as far as cooking, like I said, you put it on a simmer, just let it cook. It's just a preparation doing it. If you're going to do something you want it to taste good, it's not one of the things that you can do in a microwave. It's one of those that you have to do like this where it takes a little time. And right now, I'll be honest with you, the way this is right now, you can take this and put it on some rice and just eat it the way it is right now. It's got a glaze to it right now, and it smells great, but with the onions and peppers and the sausage and all the seasonings in there, you can actually eat it just like you like now. Now, the vegetarian version of this, if you want to do vegetarian version of this, you wouldn't use the sausage or the tasso. You would just add any other vegetables. Like you could add cube carrots. You can add green beans. I wouldn't put peas in it, but I would use green beans and carrots if you wanted to put green beans and carrots in it, along with the corn, and then all your seasonings and with the tomatoes and things that we're going to get ready to put in. And but put your seasoning, and you can eat a vegetarian version of this without the meat, and it still tastes so good. But this is the way we do it in the community. There's usually some meat. Now, a lot of times we might do this where we don't put sausage in, and we wind up putting shrimp, seafood. Put shrimp in it. And so there's a shrimp maque choux. There's a sausage maque choux. There is a venison maque choux. You can. I've even made nutria maque choux. And I don't know if you know what a nutria is. It's one of those animals that looks like a rat that lives in Louisiana, but they're vegetarians, and the meat is very tender. And a lot of people can't get their mind over it being looks like a rat, but the meat is very, very good. So you have that. We have turkey maque choux. You can do that. You can do chicken maque choux. So any type of meat you want to put in a maque choux. But I find that the sausage and tasso maque choux is really good. Or a straight shrimp with tasso is really good. Now look at that. That is just beautiful. Now while this is working down, I'm going to take the fire, I'm going to drop it down to about medium and let it simmer. And I'm going to take, now, you don't throw the juice of your out of your can of corn away. Don't throw it away. You're going to use it as your base, and you're going to pour it in the pot. Okay. Now, if you're using corn, cob, what you do is you're going to boil your corn, and you're not going to throw away that juice you boiled your corn in. You're going to save it, and then you're going to take and you're going to cut the kernels off of that cob, and then you're going to put that corn cob back into the pot. You're going to boil that down and get that real good corn flavor and make a good base there. And so you don't want to throw the juice away from your cans of your corn. So you want to keep that. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take, in this dish right now, I'm going to take half of this corn and I'm going to put it in the pot. I'm going to do some of the corn and put it in the pot, just like this here. You don't want to put all of it and then put the rest of it in this pot. So I'm going to take the corn that's in this pot and we're going to get those kernels to get some of the flavor mixed in with this corn from the sausage and the peppers and everything else. Now, like right now, if you want to just throw this in after a while, you just heat that corn up and you want to eat this just like it is, it's definitely good, to eat it like it is. You just cook it down a little bit more and let that corn get a good flavor going. Now, I'm going to start working on this pot. Now, I'm going to take this pot and I'm going to turn it to probably a medium temperature to start with, okay? And start warming it up a little bit. Actually, we're going to go to the same thing that we're doing over there because we want to heat this up to it's almost boiling. So you're going to take that and you're going to take your 2 cans of cream corn and you're going to put that right in there with your corn and you're going to mix that up. Okay, once you get that mixed up, you see you've got some good liquid going on there. Then I know you've got a can of whole tomatoes. If you're doing cream corn and you want to do it the old way, you can take that cream corn and you can actually, when you're boiling down your corn for you to take it off the cob, you'll take that corn cob and you just cut that corn and then you take your knife and you scrape that corn cob and you get all of that. You make it like a mush and it push it right into that bowl. And then you take some of the corn that you cooked and you smash that down in there with it and you make almost like a porridge. And then what you'll do, you'll cook that and you put some cornstarch in it and that'll thicken it up a little bit. And then you put honey in it and that'll sweeten it. And it makes a great cream corn. And it takes a little while. You let it simmer until it gets real thick. And then you pour it into your thing. So if you want to make your own cream corn, that's the way to do it, And so now we have our corn, our cream corn in there. We're going to put our tomatoes. And the reason I put whole tomatoes in, you take the whole thing with the juice, put the tomato in, just like that. And we take it and we mix it around. And we got it, at the right temperature. Because I'm going to take, this is really looking good here. So I'm going to get that mixed. And then now, we had our tomato paste, and you can make tomato paste yourself. But I've got, you got 2 cans. It depends on how thick you want your gravy or your tomato sauce. If you want it thick, I suggest put both cans in. Now, it'll make it really rich, very rich. And I'm going to put only 1 can in there. This is 2 cans, so I'm going to put 1 can in there for right now and see how it turns out. Because if I feel that I want it darker and I want it richer, I'll add the rest to it. And you start swirling that around, and you start to getting that going. Now, one thing about the tomatoes, you're gonna know when your maque choux is done. you'll be able to press them tomatoes against the wall of your pot and they'll just burst and disappear. And that's when you know your maque choux is really cooked well. Now, so we have all of this mixed together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add all the ingredients in the pan. Look at the juices in that pan, my goodness. So you've got all this, and that's all going to go in the pan. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. You know, right now you can smell it. It just smells so good. And let me turn this off. Now I'm looking at it right now, and it looks very thick. Okay, right now. So then what I'm going to do is I want to get it to look pretty much like a soup. So it's pretty thick right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add right now a cup of water. This is an 8-ounce cup. I'm going to add about 8 ounces of water in there. And I'm going to see how it looks. And, oh yeah, look at that. That one 8-ounce cup gave it a good soup look. So now you're going to do that. And you're going to take this and you're going to drop the heat, put the heat up a little bit because you want it to start boiling. And once it starts boiling, then you will drop the heat down to about medium. And then check it after a little while. You're going to check it again. And eventually, after about, when you look at it, you're going to test the bottom. You want to make sure that the bottom doesn't start sticking. And so after about 20 minutes of it, 20 or 30 minutes at a medium, then what I would do is I would take, after I've got that, then I drop it down, and then what you'll do is you'll get it down to about a simmer to about a quarter, where you got the 2 there, where a quarter, and I would just let it sit like that and just simmer for as long as you want. The longer it simmers, the better it's going to taste. And so we will let this simmer for the one that I showed. I'm going to pull that one that we did earlier over so you can see what it looks like when it's done. And we did this one, and it's been simmering for a while. I'm going to turn this off. And we're going to show you what this looks like. Oh my goodness. You can see the sausage, all the tomatoes. The tomatoes have, oh look at that, they're disappearing. They're just, and it is so good. And this one's been simmering for probably about 2.5 hours. And all those flavors are coming together. And so once this gets back to boiling, I will drop it down to medium. Then I'll drop it down eventually to a simmer and just let it sit. And this one's been simmering for about, like I said, about 2.5 hours maybe. And that's what it looks like when it's done. And you can see, you can take those tomatoes and they just disintegrate on the side. Look at that. And so you have all that. And that's your maque choux, What we're going to do is I'm going to turn, and I hope you enjoyed, the demonstration, and I hope you enjoy the maque choux. I'm going to come over here. Hey, there I am. I see you, So what we would do is with the maque choux corn, you would, like I said, you would, at this time of year, you would make this maque choux corn, and it would start off your fall, basically. And we have many different dishes, many different types of soups. You can use, like that filet that I had is a thickener. And it tastes really good, but if you don't have filet and you want to thicken it up a little bit, you can add cornstarch to it. And later on you can put a little cornstarch in it. Where I'm at, people always laugh because people ask me as a native, because I'm Muskogean Nation, I'm Choctaw and Houma, and they'll say, about maize, and I go, well, the only thing we know about maize is that you get lost in a maze, because in our language we don't use the word maize. We actually call corn tanshi, and that's the way we say corn, and it's called tanchi. And so if you want to cook the corn, you say tanchipahoa. It's to cook or to parch the corn, or cook it, tangipahoa. And we do have a parish in Louisiana, not too far from where I live, that's called Tangipahoa, and the tribe was called Tangipahoa. So that tells you what kind of people they were. They actually were people that cooked the corn and did a lot of corn. So what we're going to do is, if you have any questions, there we go. All right. I am trying to look at what is a good substitute for tasso. I'm in Australia. Oh, excellent. Well, tasso, any type of smoked meat. If you have any type of pepper, and if you do smoke your own meat, if you know how to smoke your own meat, if you do smoke that meat, you can do it on the grill, you can do it on a fire, you can smoke it. You can actually use a thing that we call, like I said, any type of dried meat. Just add some heavy pepper or any type of pepper that you have that you can sprinkle on it, and then smoke it with that pepper on it, and you can use that. And we always did tasso. We kept it for that reason. It was an additive to our dishes to give it a flavor for the meat, but it also is to give, you don't really have to add salts and everything because it's all in the meat. So if you're a person in Australia, and somebody that does smoked meats, all you have to do to make tasso is get that smoked meat and heavily cover it with pepper and salt, and that's when you smoke it. You do that, and then save it and use it in your dishes. So that's a good substitute. Okay, basically it means corn soup. That's all it means, and it's a French version of a corn stew, corn soup. And in our language we would say a chinoy a tanchi. But in Louisiana, if you talk to people and you talk about the soup, they say Maque Choux, and it's a corn stew, a corn soup. And the green beans. Okay, so if you're doing a vegetable one where you're only doing a vegetarian, then you would add green beans, carrots, and things like that in there. And it's just because if you want to. A lot of times we don't do it when we're doing a regular Maque Choux. We like it that you have as much just corn in it as possible because it is a corn dish. But if you don't have the meat in it and things like that, then you might want to add other vegetables, just not only for color but for a variety without having the meat in there. So usually people that do a vegetarian version of it do it the same way, but they'll add other vegetables in there to make make there a lot more vegetables, or make it a lot more thick with things in there, since you don't have the meat. So I'm looking. We don't have any more questions, but I will tell you a little story real quick about our corn and about our people. The corn, tanchi, is a very, very sacred plant to us. And there's a story where years ago the Native American men, before Europeans came here, every once in a while you act crazy, I guess, and you do things that you're not supposed to do, and you're not being respectful the way you should be. And the men at that time started getting full of themselves, because in our culture we are a matriarchal, matrilineal society where our women are very, very important. And there was a time when they started treating the women not with the respect that they were supposed to treat the women. And all of a sudden, as I guess to teach a lesson to them, all the rivers started drying up to show them, hey, you're not doing the right things. And the rivers started drying up, and the lakes started drying up, and the rain stopped, and before you know it, all the vegetation started dying, and animals just started disappearing. And they were given a message that this happened because they were getting too arrogant, and they were forgetting who they were, and this was basically to teach them a lesson. And so they decided that they had no more food, so they had to go look for food. And so the women said, we will stay here and we will take care of the food stores and we will watch the children and the elders. And you men, since you basically caused it, you have to go look for food and see if there's water and any vegetation anywhere else for us and bring it back. So the men took off. They went to the north and they didn't see anything. And it was days and days went by. And then as the days went by, the women were in charge of feeding the children and the elders. And the mothers, they were in charge of feeding the children and the elders. And the time went by again, and the men just could not find any place that had food or water. And they'd go to the west, they go to the east, they go to the south. And then, finally, when they hit a part of the south, they found an area where there was vegetation, there was green, there was lakes, there was water, and the men were just so tired they almost couldn't even walk. They were so tired because they had not eaten and had water in so long. So when they got there, the first thing they did is they ate and tried to get their strength up, but it took days to do that. And at that time, the men and the women were still in the villages, taking care of the food stores, and they were running out of food. And so the women, the mothers, decided that they were not going to let the children and the elders go hungry, so they would feed the children and the elders first and let them go, and they would put their food back into the store. And that way the women and the children, because they figured with the elders, the wisdom, they needed it for the future, but the children were the future of our people, and they said they would want them to survive. If they survived, then our culture went on. So as time went by, the men finally were able to hunt and get everything, dry the meats, get everything ready to bring back. And it just took them days and days to do that. But by the time they got back, the elders and the children figured out that the women were not eating because they were starting to get sick and they were starting to die. And they tried to feed the women, and the women just would not take the food. They said, no, you eat. They wanted the children and the elders to eat. So finally, by the time the men finally got back with the water and all the things that they were bringing back, they got back and the elders and the children were weeping. They were crying. And they found out that the women had starved themselves so the children and the elders could, and the men dropped to their knees and they started to cry. And they just felt so bad because they know that it was their fault where they were acting, but now all their wives were gone, and all those women were gone. And one of the elders got a message and said, I think you've learned your lesson, and you will have a food that will be given to you, and it will come from your women. And they just heard that and said, it will come from our women, the mothers. And they said all the mothers had died, And but they said this message that we're given, they said, okay, well, we believe that. And then the rain started. And the rain started, and where every place that they buried the women, and they buried the women in places that you could see, no matter where you went in the village, you could see where they were buried in honor of those women. And one morning, one of the young ladies woke up, one of the young girls woke up, and she ran and told everybody that there were small plants coming out of each grave. And they all came out and looked, and there were small plants coming out of each grave, out of every grave of every woman that had passed away and given their life. And all the men and all the elders said, this is the plant that is coming from, they think that was supposed to be coming from the mothers. And as that time went by, these plants grew so fast, and they got bigger, and they became stalks. And then they opened up, and you could see the fruit inside, and it looked like our corn, tanshi, is white, and it looked like a woman smiling. And then the hair was silky like the women's hair, and when you bit into it, it was milky, like milk, like your mother's milk. And they went, my God, it is from our women. And so they rejoiced, and they always remember at this time, at the time of year, that we have a green corn, that without our women in their full measure, and without our women, we would not be here, because our women give us life, and our women keep us going, and they're the heartbeat of our culture, and we will never ever ignore our women and treat them in any way but exalt them and put them on pedestals. And that's what the Southeastern Native American is. The man looks at his woman and he looks at her as somebody special. And every year we do our green corn. And we don't start that new year without our women going into that circle and into that square ground, and they actually open it and they cleanse that ground before we actually walk in. And we do that ceremony for days to show the women what we feel about them and what they, give as full measure to us. And that corn is also a representation of, without that corn, our people would have died, and a lot of people around the world would have died without that corn. And we also always remember our women, and when we see that corn, it reminds us that we have to be thankful and treat our women and our elders and our children with total respect, because you never know, it could happen again. And so that's the story of the corn, and that's why corn is so special to us. And the corn that we see now, the yellow corn, is not the corn that we had here in the Southeast. The corn we had here in the Southeast is more of a white corn. And it had purple corn kernels in it, and we called it Choctaw Dennet corn, and it was very, very sweet, very sweet. And there were a few people that were still growing it, and after Katrina in New Orleans, we lost all our seeds. So hopefully we can find it again and get it growing. How much time do I have?
You got like 5 minutes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anybody got any more questions? About anything really? Okay. All right, about beans. Okay, actually, if you can put beans in it. I have seen people put kidney beans in it, navy beans in it, and different types of beans. And I think you can do that. You can put any type of beans you want in it. Again, as you cook your Maque Choux, you're gonna take and you're gonna get this flavor. You're gonna experiment with it. Like, I just gave you the basis of the Maque Choux, but as you go on, you're gonna make that Maque Choux your own, and you're gonna say, well, you know what? I'm gonna try this, and I'm gonna try this, and put different beans in it, put different things in there, and like I said, just like I should have the sausage and the tasso in there. I've seen people put turkey meat in it. I've seen people put different types. I even seen people take portobello mushrooms and cut them up and put them in there, and so it's up to you. I gave you the basis, how to do it, your onions and your peppers and everything else. What you want to add into it, you can experiment. So again, when you get down to the nitty gritty, and our people, once you get hungry, and you use the things that you have at hand. So if you've got things at hand that you normally like, or you give it a shot. You put it in there, because I've had people I've run into that have put all type of different things in there, and some of it wasn't that great. I know one person tried to put broccoli in it, and it didn't work. It became a real mush. So and so that person never did it again. But let me see. Well, I'll be honest with you. A lot of the ingredients that people use daily in Louisiana, one of my friends that I worked with, he's a chef in New Orleans, and another chef, Paul Proudhon, and Frank Davis, and a few other chefs that I've worked with. We did a show on Native American foods, and 3 of the major chefs that I talked to, they said if we eliminated the Native American ingredient out of most American foods, or most foods in Louisiana, you wouldn't have much left, because all these different beans, they were ours. The tomatoes, they were ours. If you want to, we have squash dishes that we use, all different types of squashes. All different types of beans. So yeah, we have so many. There is you can get on Google, and now that the Native Americans are doing cooking demonstrations, you can pull up Native American beans, and you'll find most of the beans that you're using almost every day were here. They were Native American beans. The same thing with your pumpkins and your squashes and things like that. Native American. We had wild onions here. We had wild strawberries here. Just so many different things. And like I said, again, you can pull that up on the internet, Native American beans, Native American vegetables, and you go on for a day just learning about all the different things that we had already. And there are a lot of things that you have in your store that are ours before Europeans even came here. I did a class on things that, if you eliminated those ingredients, it would change your diet. Just like if you go to McDonald's and you're going to get French fries, eliminate the potatoes, you don't have no French fries. For the ketchup, eliminate the tomatoes, you won't have ketchup. Pizza, dry pizza, no ketchup. There are certain beans and certain vanillas and certain things that we had that if you eliminate, corn in itself, if you look at so many things that you buy on the shelf, have cornstarch, have corn syrup in it, and because it freezes well. So there are so many dishes, or so many beans and vegetables here and that we use today, and people don't realize that. If you just look at the ingredients and the things you have on your shelf, we had them here, and so I know people say, Native American food, and they think it's bland. No, especially in Louisiana, it wasn't bland because we had peppers, and we had so many types of beans and things, and then meats. The meats that we had, we used a lot of fish, and I was talking to somebody earlier about shrimp, and we would dry shrimp out, and a friend of mine I met at the university today, and she's her people are from Korea, and they were talking about some of the dishes that they do in Korea, and it was very similar to some of the stuff that we do here. About the dried fish, the dried meats, and about some of the shrimp that we would actually dry the shrimp out, and like you would eat shrimp or popcorn, we would eat shrimp, dried shrimp. You would just take a handful of it and eat it. And so, like I said, people think Native American food is exotic, but it's not. It's in almost every day of your life. It's in your diet. You just have to look at it and do some research, and you'll find out that almost every day of your life you're eating Native American food. So, any more questions? Well, I do hope that you enjoyed yourself. Now, we're going to do a little feast here, and I hope you have your feast. Anybody that's watching this, if you are actually making the Maque Choux while I was making the Maque Choux, give me a call and tell me that you were doing it, and tell me how it was turning out. Because I'd like to hear if you were actually doing the recipe as I was doing it, and tell me how it was turning out, because I'd like to see that. And if not, you can get online get online and let us know how your Maque Choux came out. Moundville Museum's UA Education. Let us know how your Maque Choux came out, because we're gonna probably eventually do more cooking demonstrations, because Maque Choux is just one of thousands of dishes. I mean, in Louisiana, of hundreds of dishes that we have that you probably go, wow, we have something very similar to that, or we do, and you realize that it came from Native Americans. So maybe we'll do a Native American gumbo, or something like that, or how we would bake a fish and stuff, things like that, because there's certain ways that we bake and we smoke fish and things like that. So again, let me know how your Maque Choux came out. And if you like this program, let us know, because, maybe we can do more later on. And so at this moment, I am going to let you guys go to your Maque Choux, and we're going to have our feast here. We got some CDM coffee from New Orleans with chicory, and I made some sassafras tea, and our cornbread's still warm, and our Maque Choux's still warm, and we got 2 big pots, and I think people here are going to go home with some. Like I said, it makes a lot. Again, I want to say yokoki in our language means thank you, and I hope you enjoy your tenchi, your corn Maque Choux. And again, from Grayhawk and Moundville and University of Alabama, again, looking at there. Thanks a lot, and again, I hope you enjoy Maque Choux. Let us know how it tastes. Thanks a lot.
But wait, before you go, Lindsay, could you put up the last QR code, please? So if y'all could just pull this up on your phones, it's for our assessment. Again, you can give that feedback that Grayhawk was asking for. It's pretty quick. It's just like 5 questions, and then you can leave a comment. And any compliments to the chef, we will pass forward to him. So please take a moment and fill that out for me. I would super appreciate it. Again, thank you to our co-sponsors, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with the Intercultural Diversity Center, the WGRC, and the Department of American Studies. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming and watching. When I saw that somebody from Australia was here, I was really excited. So hopefully we can put on more events like this in the future, especially that's why your feedback is important, because it lets us know what you want. So yeah, I think we're good to go. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm about to go eat a delicious meal. So y'all have a good day.